Hello and welcome to Writer Rant, author advice in 5 minutes or less because I have to get back to writing and so do you. So this week I'd like to talk about a little thing that I find somewhat annoying in writing. A lot of movies and TV shows can get away with this, but in writing, timestamps are kind of something that provide minimal situational awareness. So it really depends on how you use this, but a lot of times what I see is timestamps are used as lazy writing, and it's essentially the show don't tell. So you could say, oh hey, we've got these characters and we've got, it's 2 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, and then the next chapter it's 7 a.m. the next day. And it's like, okay, great, we know that suddenly the entire night has passed and we're on to the next day. But you could just as easily in your writing say, the next day, ... this happened. Because if you use a timestamp, it's like, okay, yeah, you're giving us all this information. It's like those movies, those action movies, oh hey, here's Istanbul, Turkey, instead of, like, I don't know, what other Istanbul is there? And so, kind of, you have these visual cues in movies that's like, hey, this is clearly this really famous city. Like, you don't need to tell us that. You don't need to put a stamp on there. And if you're counting down to something, like, I guess 24 is a good TV show that really uses the timestamp to its greatest effect to say, hey, all these things are happening all at once, and this is this ticking clock that you're kind of running against. So some of the thrillers that are out there in terms of books sometimes use that as, hey, we're going, we need to get out of here by this time, and so that timestamp is kind of the ticking clock. The better way to use that is to say, T minus whatever, how many hours, how many days until whatever the big event is. That's probably a better way to use timestamps, and that way the reader can kind of see, oh hey, here's how close we are, this is how much stuff that needs to happen, or whatever. So that's a better way to use timestamps. And so another good time to use timestamps, I guess, is if you have different points of view that are all happening at the same time. So if you have different characters who are doing different things all at the same time, then that way you can say, hey, here's this time and this character, and here's the same time and this other character. That's where timestamps might be useful. But if you're following just the same group of characters, and if your time is just continually moving forward, especially if you're like, hey, we just got onto this submarine at like midnight, and then your next paragraph you say 3 a.m. and you go and you say 3 hours later, it's like, well, you've just been redundant. Like you should cut out one of those, because you don't need to tell us, hey, it's 3 a.m. and then also, hey, it's 3 hours later. We can do the math, right? We don't need that to tell us, oh hey, now I know where we are in the timeline, because you got to give your readers at least some credit. Really when it comes down to is timestamps. Use those in your planning, right? Use them in your outlining, in your timeline construction to say, hey, here's the events and here's when they all happen. But it's almost better to write that into your story, kind of make it a little more engaging, so it's not just, oh hey, here's this description of setting and time. Like, it's kind of lazy. Like if you work it into the story a little bit better, like, oh hey, I'm really hungry because now it's morning and I haven't had breakfast yet. So I'm like, oh hey, we know it's morning time, we don't need the timestamp, we know all of these things. And it's very simple. Like, you don't need to resort to that, because if you resort to that, then suddenly you're using it as a crutch. So about you readers out there, do you like timestamps? Do you like the countdowns that authors sometimes put in their books? And if you don't, by all means let us know in the comments below. And you readers or writers out there, if there's anything about the reading or writing process that really kind of irks you, that you would want to rant about, by all means drop a comment below and maybe I'll get to it in a future episode. And thanks for watching this episode of Writer Rant. I'm Benjamin M. Weilert.